The cream-colored envelope felt like lead in my hands. Gold foil accents caught the morning light streaming through my apartment windows, mocking me with their cheerful sparkle. I didn't need to open it to know what was inside, the wedding invitation I'd been dreading for months. My name is Monica, and my brother was about to marry my best friend. Or rather, my former best friend. "You've been staring at that thing for 10 minutes, Sullivan said from my kitchen counter, where he was nursing his second cup of coffee. "Want me to open it for you?" I shook my head, finally sliding my finger under the flap. The invitation was exactly as pretentious as I'd expected. Thick cardstock, elaborate calligraphy, and a photo of the happy couple gazing lovingly into each other's eyes. "Well," Sullivan prompted, "you are cordially invited to celebrate the union of Riker and Jolie," I read aloud, my voice flat. "God, I think I'm going to be sick." "You don't have to go," Sullivan said, but we both knew that wasn't true. I dropped onto my couch, letting the invitation fall to the floor. If I don't show up, they win. They get to paint me as the bitter, jealous sister who couldn't handle their perfect love story. I made air quotes with my fingers, feeling childish but too angry to care. My phone buzzed. Speaking of the devil, it was my mother. "Did you get it?" she asked, not bothering with hello. "Isn't it beautiful? Jolie picked out the design herself." "Of course she did," I muttered. "Yes, Mom, I got it." "Now, honey, I know this is complicated, but your brother is happy. Can't you just be happy for him?" I closed my eyes, counting to 10. "Mom, Jolie was my best friend since middle school. She spent every Christmas with us for a decade. And suddenly, 6 months ago, they announced they're dating. Don't you think that's weird?" "Sometimes love just happens that way," she said, her voice syrupy sweet. "Oh, did you see the note about the family meeting tomorrow night? Your father insists everyone attend. It's about the estate planning." My stomach dropped. "Estate planning? Why now?" "Well, with Riker getting married, your father wants to make sure everything's properly arranged. You'll be there, right?" I caught Sullivan's eye across the room. He'd heard enough of my conversations with my mother to know that tone, the one that said this wasn't really a request. "I'll be there," I said, hanging up before she could say more. Sullivan crossed the room and picked up the invitation, studying it. "You think this is about the inheritance? When isn't it?" I grabbed my laptop, pulling up my bank account. The numbers hadn't changed. My teaching salary wasn't going to magically transform into the kind of money Riker and Jolie were after. My grandmother's estate is worth millions, and now suddenly my golden boy brother is marrying my best friend, right when Dad's talking about estate planning. That's not a coincidence. My phone buzzed again, a text from my grandmother, Rosalind. "Come see me before the family meeting tomorrow. Bring coffee, the good kind." I showed Sullivan the message. He raised an eyebrow. "Your grandmother's the sharp one, right? The one who never bought into Riker's act?" "That's her." I felt a small spark of hope for the first time since the invitation arrived. She sees right through him, always has. Then maybe she knows something about what they're planning. I stood up, gathering my keys and bag. "Only one way to find out. Want to grab dinner later? I have a feeling I'm going to need a drink after tomorrow's meeting." "Count me in," Sullivan said, heading for the door. At the threshold, he paused. "Hey, Monica, whatever they're planning, you're stronger than they think. Don't forget that." After he left, I picked up the invitation again, running my finger over the embossed names. Riker and Jolie, my brother and my best friend, who'd spent years listening to my secrets, my hopes, my fears, probably laughing about them the whole time. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from Jolie. "Hope you got the invitation. Can't wait to officially be sisters." I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my safe and pulled out the last birthday card Jolie had given me, just 6 months before she and Riker announced their relationship. "Best friends forever," she'd written. "No secrets between us." I placed the wedding invitation next to the birthday card, a physical reminder of their betrayal. Tomorrow, I'd see my grandmother and find out what she knew. But tonight, I had research to do. If they thought I was going to sit quietly while they manipulated my family, and tried to cut me out of my inheritance, they were about to learn how wrong they were. The church bells chimed as I slipped into the back pew, 30 minutes early for the ceremony. My grandmother's words from our morning coffee meeting still echoed in my mind. Watch everything, dear, especially what they think no one's seeing. I smoothed my navy blue dress, definitely not the pale pink bridesmaid gown Jolie had forgotten to ask me to wear, and observed the pre-wedding chaos. Monica! My mother's voice cut through the murmur of arriving guests. Why aren't you helping Jolie get ready? All her bridesmaids are upstairs. Funny, I must have missed that invitation too, I said, keeping my voice light. Besides, I thought the bride preferred to keep some distance between us these days. Mom's face tightened. Don't start. Not today. Everything okay here? Riker appeared beside us, looking perfect in his tuxedo, always the concerned brother in public. Just fine, I said, meeting his eyes, congratulating my dear brother on his unexpected romance. Riker's smile didn't waver, but his eyes hardened. Life's full of surprises, sis. Speaking of which, Dad wants to talk to you after the reception, about yesterday's meeting. The meeting you and Jolie conveniently scheduled during my teaching hours? I raised an eyebrow. How did that go? Wonderfully, he said, his voice dripping with fake warmth. We made some important decisions about the family trust. Dad's really thinking about the future. Before I could respond, the wedding coordinator hustled everyone to their places. I watched from my seat as Riker took his position at the altar, the perfect picture of a loving groom. The bridal march began, and Jolie appeared in a dress that probably cost more than my yearly salary. As she passed my pew, our eyes met briefly. Something flickered across her face. Guilt, fear, before she quickly looked away. During the ceremony, I noticed Jolie's hand trembling as she recited her vows. Interesting. The confident Jolie I knew never showed nervousness. I pulled out my phone and typed a quick note. Bride nervous. Why? The reception was held in the grand ballroom of the Harvey Hotel, my family's flagship property. I found a quiet corner to observe the festivities, noting how Jolie worked the room, charming every wealthy guest in attendance. Quite the performance, isn't it? I turned to find Sullivan beside me, offering a glass of champagne. You made it, I said, grateful for his steady presence. Couldn't let you face the lions alone. He nodded toward where Jolie was laughing with my father. Notice how she keeps touching her neck. Classic tell when she's lying. You picked up on that too? I took a sip of champagne. She used to do that during our college presentations. Monica. Jolie's voice made me freeze. She stood behind us, her wedding dress rustling. Can we talk? Privately. Sullivan squeezed my arm before walking away. I followed Jolie to a quiet hallway, away from the reception's noise. You look beautiful, she said, fidgeting with her necklace again. I really did mean to ask you to be a bridesmaid. Save it, I cut her off. What do you want? She glanced around nervously. I need you to know this isn't what you think. Oh, so you didn't secretly date my brother while being my best friend. You didn't help him convince Dad to restructure the trust in your favor yesterday. Her face paled. How did you know about the meeting? Grandmother told me everything this morning, including how you suggested removing my voting rights from the family business. Riker said it was for the best, she whispered. The company needs strong leadership, and you've never shown interest, because Riker blocked every attempt I made to get involved. I stepped closer. Tell me something, Jolie. Was any of it real? Our friendship? Or was I just your ticket into the Harvey fortune all along? Tears welled in her eyes. It's not that simple. There are things you don't know. There you are. Riker's voice boomed down the hallway. Everyone's waiting for the first dance. As he led Jolie away, she looked back at me, her expression desperate. Monica, please, be careful. Come on, honey, Riker said firmly, cutting her off. I watched them return to the reception, my mind racing. Jolie was scared, not of me, but of something else. Or someone else. My phone buzzed with a text from my grandmother. Meet me in my office. Now, bring that sharp friend of yours. I found Sullivan and showed him the message. He grinned. Ready to crash this party? More than ready, I said, heading for the elevator. I think Grandma's about to show us her cards. Grandmother's office on the top floor of the Harvey Hotel was a time capsule of old money and power. Dark wood paneling, leather-bound books, and a massive desk that had witnessed decades of family decisions. She sat behind it now, looking more alert than I'd seen her in years. Lock the door, she instructed as Sullivan and I entered. What I'm about to show you can't leave this room. I turned the lock while Sullivan took a seat. Grandmother pulled out a thick manila envelope from her desk drawer. Your brother made a mistake, she said, her voice sharp. He thought I was sleeping during yesterday's meeting. I wasn't. She spread several documents across the desk. Look here. These are the original trust documents, drawn up by your grandfather 30 years ago. And these, she pulled out another set of papers, are the changes Riker and your father tried to push through yesterday. Sullivan leaned forward, scanning the papers. They're trying to consolidate voting power. Worse, I said, pointing to a highlighted section. They're trying to make it so only married family members can hold controlling shares. That's why the wedding was rushed. Grandmother nodded. Precisely. But your brother got sloppy. Notice anything about these signatures? I examined the papers closely, then gasped. These are dated 3 months ago, but Dad's signature looks different from his current one. Because your father broke his writing hand 2 months ago, Grandmother said, smiling grimly. He couldn't have signed these then. They forged his signature. Sullivan whistled low. That's not just unethical, that's illegal. Indeed. Grandmother pulled out one final document, which is why I had my lawyers draw this up last week. It's an amendment to the trust that supersedes anything your brother tried to do. It guarantees equal shares to both my grandchildren, regardless of marital status. Does Dad know about this? I asked. Not yet. I'm saving that for the reception. She checked her elegant watch. In about an hour, actually. A knock at the door made us all jump. Mother? It was Dad. Are you in there? The photographer wants family photos. Grandmother quickly gathered the documents. Just a moment, dear. She turned to me, her voice low. Monica, I need you to take these to my lawyer's office tonight. Thomas is expecting you. Don't let anyone see you leave. What about the photos? I asked. Oh, I think we can spare you from those, she said with a wink. Sullivan, would you mind creating a small distraction in about 10 minutes? Something to draw attention away from the service elevator. Sullivan grinned. I think I can manage that. We waited until Dad's footsteps faded before opening the door. Grandmother grabbed my arm as I passed. One more thing. That friend of yours, Jolie, she came to see me last week, alone, said she had something to tell me about Riker, but he interrupted before she could. Watch her carefully. I think she's having second thoughts. I nodded, tucking the envelope into my purse. Why are you helping me like this? Her eyes softened. Because you remind me of myself at your age, and because I've watched Riker manipulate this family for too long. It's time someone stood up to him. Back at the reception, I positioned myself near the service elevator while Sullivan made his way to the dessert table. Right on cue, there was a crash, followed by Sullivan's theatrical apology as the massive wedding cake toppled over. The crowd gasped and surged toward the commotion. I slipped into the elevator unnoticed, my heart pounding. As the doors closed, I caught a glimpse of Jolie watching me from across the room. She gave me the smallest of nods before turning away. The law office was only 3 blocks away. I hurried through the darkening streets, clutching my purse tight. A text from Sullivan lit up my phone. Kate crisis contained. Riker furious. Your grandmother is amazing. She suggested everyone take a break for coffee while they clean up. You've got at least 30 minutes. Thomas, my grandmother's lawyer, was waiting at the door. Right on time, he said, ushering me inside. Let's get these filed before your brother realizes what's happening. As Thomas processed the documents, I thought about Jolie's earlier warning and her conversation with my grandmother. There was more going on here than just the trust. My phone buzzed again, this time from an unknown number. Meet me in the hotel garden after the reception. Come alone. I'll tell you everything. Jay, I showed the message to Thomas. Should I go? He finished stamping the last document. These are officially filed now. Whatever your brother was planning, he can't touch your inheritance anymore. He handed me a copy. I'd say you're in a strong position to hear what she has to say. I headed back to the hotel, the weight of the documents replaced by a new tension. In an hour, my grandmother would reveal everything to the family. But first, I had a garden meeting to attend, and something told me Jolie's secrets could change everything. I slipped back into the reception just as the staff finished cleaning up the cake disaster. Sullivan appeared at my side, pressing a fresh glass of champagne into my hand. Mission accomplished, he whispered. Documents are safe with Thomas, I confirmed, but we're not done yet. Look at this. I showed him Jolie's text. Could be a trap, he said, frowning. Or she could finally be ready to talk. I watched Jolie across the room, noting how Riker hadn't left her side since I'd returned. His hand rested on her lower back, but it looked less like affection and more like control. Ladies and gentlemen, the DJ's voice boomed through the speakers. The happy couple would like to thank everyone for their patience during our little mishap. And now, it's time for the father-daughter dance. I used the distraction to make my way closer to where Riker stood with our parents. He was speaking in low, urgent tones. Can't find the original documents anywhere, I caught him saying, and grandmother's being impossible. Quiet, Dad hissed, spotting me. Monica, come join us, sweetheart. Actually, Mum cut in, Riker was just telling us about your behavior earlier. Really, Monica, confronting the bride like that? Interesting, I said, locking eyes with my brother. What exactly did Jolie tell you about our conversation? Riker's jaw tightened. She said you were making accusations, trying to ruin her special day. Did she mention what those accusations were about? Before he could answer, grandmother's voice rang out behind us. Milton, dear, could you help me with something in my office? Bring Riker, too. Now, Riker protested, we're in the middle of... Now. Grandmother's tone left no room for argument. As they left, I noticed Jolie slipping through the French doors to the garden. Perfect timing. I waited 30 seconds, then followed. The garden was lit by strings of fairy lights, casting soft shadows among the roses. Jolie stood by the fountain, still in her wedding dress, but looking smaller somehow, more like the girl I used to know. You came, she said, wringing her hands. I wasn't sure you would. Start talking. I never wanted any of this, she burst out. The wedding, the trust, none of it. Riker, he has something on me. On my family. What do you mean? My father's company was failing. Riker offered to help, said he'd invest and save us from bankruptcy. But then he started asking for favors. Small things at first, then bigger ones. She wiped at her eyes. Before I knew it, he owned us. He said if I didn't go along with his plan, he'd destroy everything my father built, and marrying him was part of the plan. He needed a wife to secure his position in the trust. Said it had to be someone he could trust to vote his way. She laughed bitterly. Who better than his sister's best friend? Someone who already knew the family. My phone buzzed, a text from Sullivan. Your brother just stormed out of your grandmother's office. He looks ready to kill someone. Get back inside now. Jolie, I said urgently, I need you to be very clear. Are you saying Riker blackmailed you into marriage? There's more, she whispered. I found something in his office last week. Documents about... There you are. Riker's voice cut through the night like a knife. He strode toward us, his face twisted with rage. Having a nice chat? Riker, please, Jolie started. Shut up, he snapped. Both of you get back inside, now. Or what? I challenged, stepping between him and Jolie. Going to threaten us like you threatened her family? His eyes widened, then narrowed dangerously. You have no idea what you're talking about. But if you want to play games, little sister, remember, I always win. Not this time. Grandmother emerged from the shadows, followed by Dad and Sullivan. I heard everything, Riker, and so did your father. Dad looked shattered. Son, is this true? Did you blackmail this girl? Of course not, Riker protested. They're lying, trying to turn you against me. That's enough. Grandmother's voice was steel. Milton, I believe it's time for that announcement I mentioned. And Riker, you might want to call your lawyer. As they led Riker back inside, Sullivan caught my arm. You okay? I watched Jolie sink onto a bench, her wedding dress pooling around her like broken dreams. I will be. But first, I need to help an old friend. The garden fell quiet, except for the splash of the fountain and Jolie's soft sobs. I sat beside her, remembering all our shared secrets, all our promises to always be there for each other. Come on, I said gently. Let's get you out of that dress. We have a lot to talk about. The morning after the wedding, I sat in my grandmother's study surrounded by boxes of old family documents. Jolie was asleep in one of the hotel's suites upstairs, finally peaceful after crying herself to sleep. Sullivan had brought us coffee and pastries before heading to work, promising to return later. Look at this, Grandmother said, sliding a folder across the desk. Bank statements from 3 years ago. Notice anything strange? I scanned the papers, my eyes catching on a series of transfers. These are all going to offshore accounts. Exactly, and look who authorized them. Riker. I sat back, pieces clicking into place. He's been embezzling from the family business. Not just embezzling. Jolie's voice made us both jump. She stood in the doorway, wearing borrowed clothes, her face pale but determined. He's been running a whole shadow operation. That's what I found in his office. Grandmother gestured for her to join us. Tell us everything. It started with small things, Jolie said, sinking into a chair. Using company resources for personal projects. Then he began creating fake subsidiaries, channeling money through them. When my father's company did their audit last year, he found discrepancies. That's when Riker stepped in with his help. And threatened to implicate your father if you didn't cooperate. I finished. Jolie nodded. But last week I found more. He's been falsifying environmental reports for the hotel renovations, cutting corners, using banned materials. If this gets out, it could destroy the company's reputation. A knock at the door interrupted us. Sullivan entered, looking grim. You need to see this, he said, holding up his phone. On the screen was a news article. Harvey Hotel's CEO's son arrested on fraud charges. It's starting, Grandmother said, reaching for her phone as it began to ring. Milton, yes, I've seen it. No, stay where you are. We'll handle this. I pulled up the article on my laptop. Multiple sources claim investigation ongoing. Holy shit, they're saying he's been running this scheme for years. There's more, Jolie said quietly. She pulled a USB drive from her pocket. I copied his files before the wedding. Everything's here. The fake companies, the bribes, all of it. I was going to turn it over to the authorities, but I was scared. You're doing it now, I said firmly. That's what matters. Grandmother hung up the phone. The press will be here soon. Monica, take Jolie to Thomas's office. He'll know how to handle this legally. Sullivan, help me gather these documents. We need to prove we had no knowledge of Riker's activities. As if on cue, my phone lit up with Riker's number. I answered on speaker. You think you've won? His voice was cold, controlled. This is just the beginning, sister dear. I'm not going down alone. Actually, I said, you are. We have everything, Riker. The offshore accounts, the fake subsidiaries, the environmental cover-ups. Jolie gave us the files. Silence, then a harsh laugh. You're bluffing. Want to bet your future on that? I glanced at Jolie, who nodded encouragingly. Turn yourself in, Riker. Make it easier on everyone. You're going to regret this, he snarled, then hung up. He'll try something, Sullivan warned. Let him, Grandmother said, her voice hard. We have the truth on our side now. We spent the next hour organizing documents and making copies. Jolie's hand shook as she wrote out her statement, but her words were clear and damning. Sullivan fielded calls from reporters, while Grandmother coordinated with the company's PR team. I never thought it would end like this, Jolie said quietly. as we prepared to leave for the lawyer's office. "I'm so sorry, Monica, for everything." I studied her face, the face of my oldest friend, worn down by months of fear and guilt. "We'll get through this. Together this time." My phone buzzed with a text from Dad. "Coming to the office. Need to talk to you both." "Ready?" I asked Jolie. She squared her shoulders. "Ready." As we rode the elevator down, I thought about how quickly life could change. Yesterday, I'd watched my brother marry my best friend in what I thought was the ultimate betrayal. Today, we were exposing his crimes and rebuilding broken trust. The lobby was already filling with reporters. Sullivan appeared at my side, creating a path through the crowd. "Cars waiting out back," he murmured. "Your grandmother's handling the press." Through the glass doors, I could see camera flashes and microphones. Somewhere in the city, my brother was probably watching his carefully constructed world crumble. But for the first time in years, I felt strong, certain. "Miss Harvey," a reporter called out, "what do you have to say about your brother's arrest?" I kept walking, Jolie's hand tight in mine, Sullivan at our backs. We had truth to deliver and justice to serve. The time for hiding was over. The law office buzzed with activity as Thomas's team pored over the documents. Dad sat across from me, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Jolie had just finished giving her statement to the investigators. "I should have seen it," Dad said, rubbing his temples. "All those times he insisted on handling the finances himself." "He fooled everyone," I said, but Dad shook his head. "Not everyone. Your grandmother tried to warn me. So did you." He reached across the table and took my hand. "I'm sorry I didn't listen." The door opened and Thomas entered with 2 police detectives. "We have a situation," he announced. "Riker just emptied several accounts before we could freeze them. He's trying to leave the country." "What?" Dad stood up. "How much did he take?" "Nearly 10 million, one detective said. "We've alerted airport security, but—" My phone rang. "Sullivan." "Turn on the news," he said without preamble. "Now." I grabbed the remote for Thomas's office TV. The headline made my heart stop. "Harvey Hotels. Heir holds wife hostage at family estate." The camera showed our family mansion surrounded by police cars. Riker's voice came through in a phone interview. "I want safe passage out of the country, or everyone learns exactly how deep the corruption in this family goes." "Oh, God," Jolie whispered. "He's in my old office. That's where I kept my backup files." "What backup files?" Thomas asked sharply. "Everything about his schemes, but also other things. Things about the family that he told me in confidence. Scandals he was saving as leverage." Dad's face went white. "The merger scandal from '95. "Among others," Jolie said. "I'm so sorry. I kept records of everything as insurance." My phone buzzed again. "Grandmother." "Don't let your father do anything rash. On my way with a solution." "We need to end this now," Dad said, reaching for his coat. "I'll talk to him." "No." I blocked his path. "That's exactly what he wants. More family secrets to exploit." The detective's radio crackled. "Suspect is demanding to speak with his sister. Says he'll only negotiate with her." Everyone turned to look at me. Sullivan, who had just arrived, stepped forward. "No way, it's too dangerous." "I have to," I said, "but I have an idea." I turned to Jolie. "Where exactly in your office did you keep those files?" "Bottom drawer of the oak desk, hidden compartment. Why?" I smiled grimly. "Because while Riker was busy learning the family business, I was the one who spent summers exploring that house. I know every secret passage, including the one that leads right under that office." "Absolutely not," Dad protested, but Thomas was already nodding. "We can work with this. Get SWAT in position while she keeps him talking." The next hour was a blur of tactical planning. I wore a wire as Sullivan drove me to the mansion. Police cars lined the street, lights flashing silently. "Be careful in there," Sullivan said, gripping my hand. "He's desperate." "That makes 2 of us." The negotiator handed me a phone. Riker answered on the first ring. "Come alone through the front door," he ordered. "Any tricks, and everyone learns just how dirty this family's money really is. I entered slowly, hands raised. Riker stood in the office doorway, looking wild-eyed. A gun trembled in his hand. "Just you and me now, sis," he said. "Like old times." "Let's talk," I said, moving into the office. Through the window, I could see police snipers taking position. I just needed to keep him distracted for 5 more minutes. "Nothing to talk about," he spat. "You ruined everything. You and that treacherous bitch I married. You did this to yourself, Riker. The fraud, the blackmail, the threats. I did what I had to do. This family never appreciated me, always comparing me to you. Perfect Monica, so honest, so principled." A slight scratching sound came from behind the desk, right on schedule. "It's not too late," I said, taking a step closer. "Turn yourself in, make it right." "Make it right?" He laughed manically. "I'm going to burn it all down, starting with these." He moved toward the desk drawer. The hidden panel behind him burst open. 2 SWAT officers tackled him as the gun clattered to the floor. More police poured in through the door. "No!" Riker screamed as they cuffed him. "You don't understand. I had to do it. The family legacy is safe," Grandmother said, entering regally. "No thanks to you." As they led Riker away, Dad pulled me into a fierce hug. "Don't ever do anything like that again." "No promises," I said, watching my brother's retreating form. "Some things are worth fighting for." Outside, Sullivan waited with Jolie. The morning sun was rising over the mansion, casting long shadows across the lawn. An era was ending, but maybe, just maybe, something better was beginning. 1 week after Riker's arrest, we gathered in Grandmother's office for an emergency board meeting. The room was packed with lawyers, executives, and family members. Jolie sat beside me, her annulment papers freshly signed. "The press is having a field day," Thomas said, spreading newspapers across the conference table. Headlines screamed about scandal and betrayal. "We need to address this head-on." "I agree," Grandmother said, standing at the head of the table. "Which is why I've called everyone here. It's time for changes." She nodded to her assistant, who distributed thick folders to everyone present. "These documents outline our new corporate structure," she continued. "Complete transparency, enhanced oversight, and—" She paused, smiling at me. "New leadership." Dad cleared his throat. "Mother, are you sure about this?" "Absolutely." She turned to address the room. "Effective immediately, I'm stepping down as CEO. Monica will take my place, with Jolie heading our legal compliance department." The room erupted in murmurs. I sat frozen, feeling every eye turn to me. "With all due respect," one of the older board members spoke up, "Miss Harvey has no experience running a hotel chain." "No," Grandmother agreed. "But she has something more valuable, integrity, and she won't be alone." She gestured to Sullivan, who stood by the door. "Mr. Hart has agreed to join us as CFO, bringing his expertise in corporate restructuring." Sullivan stepped forward. "I've reviewed the books. With proper management and transparency, we can recover from this scandal stronger than ever." "The vote must be unanimous," Thomas reminded everyone. "As per company bylaws." I stood up, heart pounding, but voice steady. "I know many of you have doubts. You're wondering if I can handle this responsibility. But I've watched this company my whole life. I've seen its potential and its flaws. I'm not my brother. I don't want power for power's sake. I want to rebuild what he nearly destroyed." Jolie stood next to me. "I'll testify to everything Riker did, every scheme, every cover-up. Then I'll help create safeguards to ensure it never happens again." The boardroom fell silent. Grandmother picked up her gavel. "All in favor?" Hands rose slowly at first, then faster. Dad's went up last, his eyes shining with tears. "Unanimous," Grandmother declared, banging the gavel. "Congratulations, CEO Harvey." The next hour was a blur of signatures and handshakes. As the room cleared, Sullivan pulled me aside. "You ready for this?" "Ask me again in a year," I said, managing a shaky laugh. "Monica." Dad approached, looking uncertain. "I owe you an apology. Many apologies, actually. I was so focused on preserving the family legacy, I couldn't see who was really protecting it. We all made mistakes, I said, but we can fix them, together. A commotion outside drew our attention. Through the glass walls, we could see reporters gathering in the lobby. Your first challenge as CEO, grandmother said, straightening my jacket. Time to face the press. Jolie handed me a folder. The statement we prepared. But maybe speak from the heart instead. I took a deep breath and walked to the elevator, Sullivan and Jolie flanking me. The doors opened to camera flashes and shouted questions. Miss Harvey, how do you respond to accusations that your brother's actions indicate systemic corruption? What changes can we expect under your leadership? I stepped up to the microphones, feeling the weight of generations of Harvey business leaders behind me. Today marks a new chapter for our company, I began. One built on transparency, accountability, and trust. My brother betrayed those values, but his actions don't define us. What defines us is how we move forward. More questions flew, but one cut through the noise. How can the public trust another Harvey after what happened? Because I'm not just another Harvey, I said firmly. I'm the Harvey who helped expose the truth, the Harvey who chose integrity over power, and I'm the Harvey who promises you this. Every decision I make will be in the light, every action open to scrutiny. Sullivan squeezed my shoulder supportively as cameras flashed. Now, I continued, I'll take your questions. All of them, because that's how we rebuild trust, one honest answer at a time. As reporters raised their hands, I caught grandmother's proud smile from across the lobby. Dad stood beside her, nodding encouragingly. Jolie was already taking notes, preparing for the work ahead. This wasn't the family drama I'd expected when I received that wedding invitation. But maybe it was the one we needed, a chance to tear down the old facades and build something real in their place. First question, I said, pointing to a reporter. Let's begin. The autumn breeze rustled through the courtyard as I unlocked the heavy doors of the Harvey Hotel's main entrance. Dawn was just breaking, painting the sky in soft pinks and golds. These quiet moments before the day began had become my favorite part of being CEO. You're here early, Sullivan said, appearing with 2 coffee cups. He handed me one and fell into step beside me. Couldn't sleep. Today's the day. We rode the elevator to the top floor, where Jolie was already waiting. Legal documents spread across the conference table. Everything's ready, she said, looking up. The prosecutor called. Riker's taking the plea deal. I sank into a chair, emotions swirling. How long? 8 years minimum, plus full restitution. She pushed a newspaper across the table. But that's not why I called you both here so early. Look at this. The headline read, Harvey Hotels, named Most Transparent Corporation of the Year. Below was a photo of our leadership team, me, Sullivan, Jolie, and grandmother, at the opening of our newest location. Your grandmother's going to be insufferably proud, Sullivan said, grinning. Speaking of, Jolie nodded toward the door where grandmother stood, Dad beside her. I thought I might find you all here, grandmother said, entering regally. Big day. I just got off the phone with the prison, Dad said quietly. Riker wants to see you, Monica, before he signs the plea. The room fell silent. I felt Sullivan tense beside me. You don't have to go, he said. Yes, I do. I stood up. This needs to end properly. The prison visiting room was cold and sterile. Riker sat behind the glass, orange jumpsuit hanging loose on his frame. He looked smaller somehow, less threatening. Hello, sister, he said as I sat down. Come to gloat? No, I came to listen. He laughed bitterly. To what? My apology? My excuses? To whatever you need to say before you sign that plea. His facade cracked slightly. I saw the papers. Company's doing well under your leadership. It is. I never thought. He paused, struggling. You were always the good one, the honest one. I hated that about you, but now I understand why grandmother chose you. She didn't choose me, Riker. I chose to be trustworthy. You could have too. Too late for that now. He picked up the plea papers. 8 years is a long time. Use it well, I said, standing. Goodbye, brother. Back at the hotel, I found everyone in my office. Sullivan had ordered breakfast, and Jolie was showing Dad how to use the new transparency reporting software. How did it go? Grandmother asked softly. He signed the plea. I picked up a pastry. It's over. Not over, she corrected. Just beginning. The board approved your proposal for the charitable foundation. The one using recovered funds to help victims of corporate fraud? Dad asked. Brilliant idea. Actually, I said, that was Jolie's idea. Jolie blushed. Well, after experiencing it firsthand. Speaking of ideas, Sullivan interrupted, pulling out his tablet. Wait until you see the designs for the new employee profit-sharing program. As they launched into an animated discussion about the future, I walked to the window. Below, the city was coming alive. Hotel guests streamed through the lobby. Employees greeted each other. Life moved forward. My phone buzzed, a text from Thomas. Plea officially filed. It's done. Monica, Sullivan appeared at my side. Everyone's waiting. We have that meeting about expanding the educational scholarship program. I turned back to my family. Not just blood relatives, but the family we'd chosen and built. Dad arguing good-naturedly with Jolie about legal terminology. Grandmother pretending not to be proud of everything we'd accomplished. Sullivan, steady and supportive as always. Before we start, I said, getting their attention, I want to thank you all. A few months ago, I thought I'd lost everything. My best friend, my brother, my place in this family. Instead, I found something better, something real. Oh, darling, Grandmother said, you never lost your place. You just needed to claim it. And now that you have, Dad added, the company's stronger than ever. To new beginnings, Jolie proposed, raising her coffee cup. To family, Sullivan added, the kind you choose. To truth, I finished, joining their toast. Outside my office, phones rang and employees bustled. There were meetings to attend, decisions to make, a legacy to rebuild. But in that moment, surrounded by people I trusted, I knew we'd face it all together. Not as the broken family from that wedding day, but as something stronger, a family forged by truth, tested by fire, and finally whole.